declare quorum. We've got enough people here for a quorum. Any changes to the agenda?
Nope.
No changes to the agenda. Do we need to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Been moved and approved for the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes from the last meeting?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I get a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
So seconded. Minutes are approved.
You guys are all in favor.
What's that?
You have to call for your vote now.
Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Sorry, I don't do this very often.
No, you're fine.
Chase, we'll start then with
Yep.
the first item.
All right, so Commissioners, this is one that was brought back from our last meeting. We have the applicant and some engineering and architectural representation here tonight. So the applicant's proposing constructing a new facility for Red River Drywall at 1035 5th Street East. Again, I think we talked about this in the last meeting. This was reviewed under the 2003 land use ordinance as it was submitted prior to the adoption of the new ordinance. And the proposed setbacks, however, are compliant with the newly applied industrial district on this. The applicant's proposing to construct an 8,220 square foot building to house the operations for Red River Drywall. With the proposed roof line does exceed 100 feet in length. The applicant has provided a very roof line, as we can see through the architectural plans. That'd be part of the conversation tonight to make sure that that satisfies the intent of the ordinance there. Materials include vertical metal siding, a metal wainscot, and a brick veneer covering the proposed chimney, as well as some additional veneer along the wainscot area. They did modify based on some of the conversation that we had, some of the items for this application as well. Generally speaking, with the buildings that are out there in that area, this does satisfy the ordinance for the city and is compliant with the area around. I guess that's really kind of all I have for you guys tonight on this one. This is not a public hearing, but there is the applicant and stuff here, so if you guys do have some questions for them on this, more than appropriate to ask them or have that conversation. So,
Okay. We have the applicant. Do you want to say anything or come forward?
Good evening. Quick introduction. Austin Peterson, Jeremy Peterson. We recently purchased Red River Drywall approximately a year ago. We're currently a Horace based company looking to stay in Horace. We are outgrowing our current facility that we have and looking to relocate to the industrial park. We've enjoyed working with Jace and Keith so far in this process, and hoping to answer any questions you have. Specifically on if there's any architectural or engineering questions, we do have architectural and engineering representatives here tonight.
So the roof line breakup is more or less the office, the different roof line for the office based along roof line, correct?
Correct.
The wainscot, the metal wainscot is just going to be on the one elevation, or is it going to be all the way around?
There'll be a stone wainscot on the front office, and then you'll have metal wainscot on like street facing. So on the rear of the building, we will not have a wainscot.
And the two sides?
Correct. Yeah. Basically the unseen. Everything seen will be dressed up in accordance with your city standards.
The fence material that's proposed, what are you looking at using there?
Proposal is going to be a 6-foot high white vinyl full privacy fence with then aluminum steel inserts through some of the posts so that we don't have fence blown over.
Okay. And that is going to run?
The perimeter.
That'll run the whole perimeter? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, you're on a pretty visible corner
Yep.
there, so it's nice to have it.
One question that I have to the commission is regarding the gate requirement and or not requirement. So there's been some questions. I haven't gotten a definite answer as far as a gate requirement. I do drive on 100th often and want to ensure that if there is no gate requirement, or is there a gate requirement? Because some of the, I can see, well, I'm trying to think, is it All Store? Is that the current one?
All
No.
Star doesn't have a fence.
Who's the
It's
one?
that concrete company, but I don't know if they have a.
Most of them, a lot of them don't have gates. If they do have a gate, it's for security for their yard
Yeah.
itself.
But there's not a core requirement from the city and or the standards to have a gate, correct?
Not particularly. Obviously, the gate helps with screening, so your sight line, we're still would be able to see back into
Yeah.
that yard. But for the most part, it's more meant for the enclosure itself. I know fire has had some issues with gates and stuff within there
correct.
for their access purposes. I guess it's up to the commission, and I guess you guys too, security-wise, if you want to keep it out, there's nothing in the city ordinance that says you can't.
Are you
If-
thinking of gate access from Fifth or from what?
So our road, so if we want to pull up
Yep.
the site map here real quick, we can just talk through it. It would be actually our preference to not have, to get it approved with no gate, with the ability to come back later if we wanted a gate for a variety of reasons. Again, from the sight line, we intend to run the fence actually across. So if you were to draw, if you look at the fence where that X is, that is essentially, we're gonna have a concrete mounted post there. And that's where the fence would end on the parking lot there. So there would be a corner to the fence. Our intention would not to not run the fence or have the ability to not run the fence all the way, to have that option. With sightline, with our understanding of sightline, like our standards high, our business is not necessarily the trucks and trailers and the typical debris field that you would see. If we have a mess, it's going to be contained to the interior of the building. And so we don't want to, I see fences all the time with gates that are down. I don't want that. That's really what we're looking at.
Do you need that much width for that opening? Could you bring the corner post out to the end of the parking stripe? I don't know if your parking stripes are 18 feet or if they're 20 feet deep.
20 feet.
They're 20 feet.
I'll refer to the engineer.
Can it run out that far? If you have cars there, you're not going to be able to, if you have a car that's 18 to 20 feet,
Yeah, we can run it out to the end of the parking stall. I think that's what we, I'm sure we'll have to go back and look at our CAD drawing, but yes, that is a possibility to run to the
yeah, I would prefer that it run out that far.
So you don't have a partial car shown?
See it, right,
Yeah, I think we could take that recommendation.
yeah. You're still going to have the same amount of drive lane.
Right.
Regardless if there's cars parked there or not. It's
Correct,
just-
you're not minimizing yeah.
Right, and as long as there's enough room there between lanes, looks like your 28 feet should be plenty of room even for a semi to get in there, even though it'll be
Yeah.
hard to turn around back in there, but. Maybe not with the yard.
So we can visit on that if you'd like to, as far as traffic in. I think that's one of the concerns when you're on industrial, like what is our traffic into the building? Our traffic into the building is gonna be regular employee-based traffic, some small sundry type deliveries, and then of course, garbage picking up. So we're not gonna have,
You won't have drywall deliveries and stud deliveries.
No,
most of
that's all job
direct
site,
to
it's all job site driven.
Yeah.
And we have it set up so that there's a shop bay on that side, so the drywall truck, even if they're bringing mud, they just back up to that door and pull straight out.
Okay. Roof is galvanized colored.
Colored, yeah, copper,
Colored.
yep, colored.
Standing
So it'll
rib.
be
Say that again,
It'll be
Metal
just-
roof, it'll be standing rib.
I'm assuming it's just a screw down,
screw down,
right?
yep.
You guys have any other questions, concerns? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the design.
Do you want to
That's what it
include
is
a
tonight,
condition
right?
to extend that
Fence?
Yeah, with the condition that extend, the fence will be extended out to the end of the parking or car.
That's no trouble.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Design review passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
The second item, Jace?
Yes. So, Commissioners, this is another design review. This is actually more of a, I guess, housekeeping item. 6045 100th Avenue South, which is the Outdoor Concepts building, was approved back in August / September of 2021. The building was constructed, however, through some of its construction, there was a few different design materials that were incorporated into the construction that would just warrant just a reapproval of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Not anything entirely major, but the original approval, which is included in your guys' packet. The original design proposed a stucco / EIFS siding on the pushed out portion of the building that faces County Road 14. The applicants since swapped that material with a wood grain metal siding. Additionally, the original proposal only showed one door on the frontage of the building. However, an additional door has been installed, which then adds additional canopies and features to the building. And both of those doorways have had those canopies installed. And then the last modification that it's not reflected in the plan, but it revolves around the cupolas, which they reduced from 3 to 2. And so I don't know, you're not associated with?
I'm part of Outdoor.
Okay, perfect. So we do have someone here if you guys have any questions, but this is kind of just a cleanup thing to get some checkbox items figured out so we can get them their full occupancy for that building.
So the stucco part, they're supposed to be stucco and then they swap
Yeah,
that
and
out for
I
that.
should have found or taken a picture of the building.
No, it's- I prefer the stucco.
But it looks nice. It's just a,
I've seen it, it does look nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I drove by it too.
So we do have a representation. You guys, any questions? But that's all I had. Just like I said, this is a house cleaning item, just to hit our check boxes of completion of the project before the full occupancy.
So would you call this an updated design review?
Design
Or
review
revised
modification.
Modification to
Yeah.
a design review? Okay. Do you guys have any other questions,
Did the staff have any
concerns?
concerns?
I mean, I personally don't. This was in process and almost done before I started with the city. It's just kind of trying to catch up on some loose ends out in the industrial park is where this has now come from. And then the owner of the property's been working on getting the architectural plans for a while. He sent them to the architect. The architect forgot, and it took a little bit to get to this point. So I don't personally have any concerns. The building actually, it looks really nice, and they have, I believe, gone above and beyond in terms of the concrete wall fence that wasn't originally approved before, and they made the decision to come back with that, and I think it turned out pretty nice. So
Yeah.
It does look incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have,
So the reduction of the cupolas from 3 to 2.
still meets the requirements?
Still meets the
It's still a
requirements.
roof line breakup of that, and I guess less opportunity for leaking. So
Yep. Okay. I will,
So this would be a design modification review, right?
yeah, it is design remodification.
Yeah.
I will propose to approve the design modification from the original 2021 approval.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Design review modifications passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, stop there.
So the next item up, Maple Lakes Estate.
Yes, Commissioners, so this is a public hearing for a variance regarding setbacks and dimensional standards within the Maple Lake subdivision. With the adoption of the city's new land use ordinance, the city council included a section within the non-conforming section, essentially grandfathering the setbacks for any platted property that was owned R6 or in the entitlement process requesting R6 for the zoning districts. The properties in question with this application were zoned R4 and therefore not included within that grandfather clause. Subsequently, the adoption of the ordinance, the properties in question were zoned SR3. The SR3 zoning district requires a minimum front yard setback of 25 feet, a rear yard setback of 40 feet, and a side yard setback of 10 feet with 25 feet for street side yard. Additionally, the SR zone has a maximum building coverage of 30%. The applicant is requesting that dimensional standards and building coverage standards be modified with the R4 zoning, or be modified to mirror the R4 zoning district standards as defined in the 2003 land use ordinance in order to maintain consistency with lots already built on within the Maple Lakes Estate subdivision. For reference, the R4 zoning district has a lot coverage of 50%, front yard setback of 30 feet, a rear yard setback of 30 feet, and a side yard of 8 feet with a street side of 18. Staff can recognize this development has been in the home construction process since 2020, and the dimensional standards of the new land use ordinance may limit the planned footprints of homes within that development. Staff would note that the lot widths throughout Maple Lakes Estates meet or exceed the minimum lot width requirement for SR3 zoning district. However, several lots fail to meet the 10,800 square foot minimum lot size, which may pose practical difficulty in meeting the newly applied lot coverage standards. Lastly, I would note that this is for the lots specifically owned by Thompson Homes. We could expect that another builder who purchased some would be providing a similar request in the coming weeks. But the applicant is here tonight if you guys have any questions. That's all I have for my spiel. So whenever you are ready to open the public hearing, we can.
Okay, opening the public hearing.
Hi guys, thanks for having me tonight. Yeah, I had put it on the application request. So in total, we have built and closed around 70 homes out in Maple Lake Estates.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What
Yes,
your
yep, sorry about
role is with-
that. Niels Thompson, I'm president at Thompson Homes.
Okay.
Yeah, and manage a lot of the land development and lot acquisition process for the company. So we've built and closed or have completed around 70 homes in Maple Lake Estates already. Of that, 48 of them fall into plan types that would no longer fit on those lots if the new ordinance is upheld on it. Honestly, it was an oversight through all of the meetings that it was zoned differently than what was going to be grandfathered in, or I or someone else would have brought it up at the time of discussion of that. And I know through conversation with Jace, the intent of grandfathering in what was more of the high density, which makes sense since that's what most of Horace has seen lately in the lot development. That just wasn't something that I realized through that process. And so when we found out about it, when we submitted permit, that's when we submitted the variance as soon as that happened. And I maybe note too, with the change, 9 of our most common plans that we sell and build no longer fit on those lots, which make up the 48 that have already been closed out there of the 70. So about 70%.
So what your assumption was is that they were going to be grandfathered in as what zone?
As the previous zoning.
Which is R4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was miscommunication in terms of with the council's decision to do that for R6, that was applied
Oh,
to
so the
all
The
existing.
request is for them
Basically,
not be the SR3, but to be R4?
they would continue as SR3 for the underlying zoning district with a modification to the setbacks to mirror the previous R4. The ordinance only allows a variance in setbacks and dimensional standards if approved by council. However, you guys are the recommending body in this scenario.
Okay, so the lot sizes all conform?
Lot widths are in conformance. The only issue that you potentially run into are your street side yards, because that has increased from 18, what would have been 18 with the R4 to 25. And because they are not all exceeding the overall lot size requirement of 10,800 square feet, there is a potential practical difficulty of meeting the lot coverage, which has reduced from 50 feet or 50% to 30%.
You say several lots, how many, several?
Is it all the .22s?
4.4 is the list of the lots within, oh, well, like, what do you mean several, like in terms of ones that aren't compliant with the?
You know, like you said there's 48 lots left to be built on, right?
Oh, sorry, no, 48 is what we have closed or have completed under construction as far as that fall into the plan types that will no longer fit. So we've closed or completed 70 in the area. 48 of them are the plan types that will no longer fit if the new zoning is upheld. And we've got around, I don't know the exact number, but around 70 open lots in that area yet to finish construction on, start construction on.
So this whole development is R4?
How many of the
What?
70 don't conform?
Was R4?
What's that?
How many of the 70 don't conform with whatever the lot size requirement is?
I don't have the exact number off my head, but
Is it the .22 acre lots probably then? I don't know.
yeah, so it's 10,800 square feet is the minimum within the SR3. And I'll just pull up the plat here.
And this development was completed at the end of last year. It was approved year prior under that previous zoning that was there. And
Which phase is this?
this is the second phase of
Second
Maple Lake
phase,
Estates.
second phase.
Yep, yep,
And the first phase was zoned
same.
the same,
Yep.
R4?
Yep. And so essentially just trying to keep it the same, because when we designed the lots, we intentionally designed them to be able to maximize the size, to minimize the lineal footage of the lot, to minimize the expense for the client on the lot cost and the specials cost.
So he said he think it's everything under like .25 acres. would fall
Roughly,
into
and
that.
so you can look at the plat, because they're not as deep, like width-wise they're fine, but depth-wise they're all around that 10, they're about 300 square feet shy on average.
300 square feet.
Or sorry, yeah, shy of the minimum within that SR3.
How many other developments do we have that are like this?
And this is, Niels and I had this discussion talking about this is really the only one that's outstanding within terms of R4. Same with Arrowwood Third, that was R4, but all of their lot widths were 60. So they would not have met the minimum, so they got bumped up to where the minimum lot width within all of Maple Lakes is in excess or meets that standard. So when the consultant did the zoning application, they stuck with the SR3 there. But this is the outlier of outlier cases to where we don't have another R4 that's drastically affected by that.
And how many of these lots are sold?
So we've got around 70 vacant lots. We've got 2 where clients have put money down to hold the lots to build, but don't have plan types confirmed yet. And then we've got 2 other homes that are sold, ready to start construction. We have another home that we plan to put in as a model that we've actually put on hold because it won't meet the current ordinance. And just based on the percentages, I'm guessing that those clients who put money down to hold the lots so they don't lose them are probably the plan types that we're talking about won't fit on those lots. Because again, that's about 70% of what we've completed and closed are plan types that will no longer fit.
So the lots right now aren't compliant with SR3?
With everything but just that minimum standard, or the minimum
Okay.
overall lot
So
size.
they would stay zoned SR3, they wouldn't?
Right, we're not changing
We're
the
not changing
zoning
them
of
to
the property. This
R4s
would
or
be a
anything.
reduction of dimensional standards for these lots.
One-time deal, we're not trying to change the ordinance.
Right.
No,
It's
and this would
extenuating
be,
circumstances, and we're not expecting more to come forward and try to do the same thing, right?
I wouldn't be expecting more, no.
Okay, okay.
There may be other
For 90
contractors or owners that would.
Yeah, there's a few other lots that are owned by Dabber Custom Homes in this that has submitted one too, so we'll see in the next couple weeks a similar application like this. But
everything else from this.
it's all within this
Yeah.
development.
So
Everything
was-
else from this point out should all be SR3, basically.
And
Correct?
currently, those should be the only two applications that you would see.
Yeah.
We own all lots
Everything else
except
that
those that we sold
was
to Dow.
changed from R4, R3, R2 to SR3 actually receive more of a benefit considering if they were in that R2 or R1 prior and they had 25 or 30-foot side yard setbacks, got a huge reduction where that transition between R4 and SR3 is actually a minor, I guess, a reduction in your front yard setbacks, but an increase in your side yard.
So the extenuating circumstance here is the change in the ordinance. In other words, it was submitted and passed and was compliant, and then the ordinance changed, and is that accurate? I don't know.
I don't know if I would go that route specifically because cities can change their ordinances.
No, right.
And-
Roads are built already, kind of.
Right.
Somewhat.
They're more, I guess the more extenuating circumstance is, like Commissioner Zietz just said, you know, they have homes that are already built or under contract in that,
Yeah.
and which could drastically impact, I guess, sale of lots in that sense,
Mhm.
but,
And this was zoned R4 quite a few years ago.
yeah, back in 20.
So if they would have been built on prior,
Prior to the ordinance
they would
change,
have all been
they
fine.
would have been fine.
And basically, the lot sizes and everything was established originally for R4. Correct?
Right.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Well, just of the leftover lots, it looks like about half of them are below the 0.25 acres, which is the 10,000, whatever, so it's about half. So, I mean, it is what it is, so.
Right. And it's difficult because you never really want to point at a changing of an ordinance as what has created the hardship, but in this scenario where you have not that deep of lots and a kind of a change in your building coverage, that changes kind of the game a little bit. It's hard, and these variances are not common, and they're rather relatively difficult to navigate because there's not necessarily anything wrong with the properties themselves that would warrant it, other than you had kind of a changing of the rules.
There's something kind
So-
of in that bottom left corner, but it would, all the roads would have to be like shifted. It would just, yeah, just weird, be weird, for sure.
And if this would have been addressed prior, it probably would have been changed.
Yeah, I mean, they probably could have taken a look at that. I mean,
Well, if they're not compliant with SR3, then what would they, if we didn't approve the variance, what would they become? I mean, they couldn't stay SR3 because they're not compliant.
They would stay SR3, it's just that the model houses would all have to change, correct?
Right, there's nothing, I guess, non-compliant with the properties apart from
Well, I
like the
thought you
overall.
said they were 3,300 square feet.
About 300
short of
square feet
being-
off, correct. But
of being
in terms of
SR3.
like trying to upzone the property would not be the route I would go either. Lots that are non-conforming in size are still technically conforming so long as they can meet the setback. So there's nothing wrong with the lots themselves, because in theory, depending on home product, they can still meet the setbacks, which
So
therefore
what
under
we're
the
being asked
ordinance.
is to allow the setback to be changed slightly on the side.
Yeah, and,
Right,
yeah, ultimately it just come down to the side.
Yeah.
yeah. We're putting the setback back to the R4 is what
Right.
we're looking at doing.
Because realistically,
Right.
let's say if he came through and they had homes that would fit on those lots with the 10-foot side yard setback, although they're not conforming in terms of the overall lot size, they would still be viewed as conforming because they can meet the setback. So there's kind of a difference between absolutely unable to meet the setback and then home product that won't fit because,
Right, what I'm thinking about is what they're going to be designated. Is the property title then going to have this caveat inserted in there so that going forward, they can't say, well, this is an SR3 and somehow this has to be,
yeah, this would
It'd
get.
be recorded as a
has
variance.
to be recorded on the
It'd be a
property.
variance. It wouldn't necessarily be on the property, but it'd be held on with our building official staff that monitor the setbacks with new plans.
Right, and if the builder doesn't have homes that fit on there, then they're starting back over again. Correct, is that the way?
Yeah, yep. And essentially, when we purchase our land and when we go through the development process, so as an example, if our home plan is 50 foot wide, if the setbacks on the side are 5 foot, we'll develop 60 foot wide lots so that we're maximizing that land space to minimize the cost to the client and our sales price. And so that's exactly what's happened here, is we maximized it based on what was there at the time when we developed it. And because of the change has occurred, now our plans that we have that we've been selling for years, some of these date back 15 years ago is when we developed these and have been really good sellers, now don't fit.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can separate the acreage lots of what are gonna be grandfathered and what aren't gonna be. In other words, all the .22s, you couldn't say they are not grandfathered, and all the .24s and above are. We've never done anything like that before, have we?
No, I just administratively, that becomes kind of a
Okay,
nightmare.
okay. Well, I'm just.
As continuity wise, I mean, and reminder, you guys are a recommending body, so no matter what you do, council could override
They
it.
can override it, say,
But in terms of consistency of the development, I guess I would say it's an all or nothing kind of.
In other words, that 0.22 acre lot does not take the, whatever, the biggest houses, whatever. Well, yeah, that would.
Well, it could have that width of house on it that was originally planned for it. I mean, that's what he's getting at, is they kind of figure out what they've got for houses that can fit on those lots. Those are the styles of homes that they can market and sell. And now all of a sudden, they're gone because they're not in compliance anymore.
Yep.
And they'd have to figure out a different product to put on there, so.
And I was just saying that if you had this really small lots, you have that restriction only go to the really small lots, but then anything above the point, well, I'm just looking at the acreage on the lots here.
Right.
Anything above that, but I don't know how that would be administered, so. I certainly, I've bought other houses before, and based on our acreage or on the size of the lot, we were restricted on, in Ohio, I was restricted on the size of the lot, or the size of the house that I could put on the lot. I couldn't just put, take up the entire lot with a house, take out the biggest house for the smallest lot. It wasn't allowed back there, but guess we don't have that same, we're not under that same auspice here.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a lot coverage percentage, impervious surface amount that we can't exceed, which none of our homes exceed that based on the square footage of the lot.
Yeah.
So it's less of a overall square footage, and it's more of, it's the width of the plans.
So you comply with the 30%? Is that what it is on these now?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even though 30% sounds like a small number, when you actually calculate it out,
Yeah.
it's,
Pretty big for
Pretty big.
that size lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
so you're in compliance with
Yeah.
that requirement too?
Yeah.
yeah. Ultimately, this comes down to the side yards of the property.
So there'll be like SR3 with an asterisk or something?
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same with our compact residential that was formerly R6 or in process, like they're,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
got a
that's
whole
right.
special map that details all of those lots where they're at.
So in that case, are you trying to look for a variance that includes the old at 50%, or are we trying to say 30%? And then just the setbacks are R4? So what's the recommendation there?
So essentially, this would be, the request, I think, was overall building coverage, or the overall lot dimension standards and building coverage. I don't foresee the building coverage being necessarily that big of an issue to where this could just be a reduction in the side yard setback. So I guess I'll look to Niels in terms of what are we entirely wanting out of the thing? Are you wanting all of the R4, which I think was the
Sure.
initial request
Yeah,
in there?
Does it make it simpler?
And it can make it simpler, just
yeah.
a variance reducing the lot dimensional standards to
Back to the R4.
just, I would, yeah, to mirror the R4 standard.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the zoning district isn't changing on that.
Well, and that's what the assumption was going
Mhm.
into this, that the R6 got grandfathered, so the R4,
Yeah.
you were thinking the R4 got grandfathered too.
Yeah.
so,
Yep.
yeah, I don't have a problem with
Is there any other questions? If not, I'm gonna close the public hearing. And can we get a motion?
that. I'll make a motion to, you want to draft the verbiage on that?
So this would be a motion
Return
to recommend
R4.
approval of the variance for Maple Lakes Estates, reducing the setbacks and lot dimensional standards to mirror the former R4 district. If you want to just give me a so moved, we can go with that.
So moved.
Second?
So it's been moved and seconded?
Jace, I'm
Oh.
sorry,
Oh,
the only question I have is, I had our team specifically look at like the zoning side. I feel fairly confident that impervious surface isn't an issue. I don't know if it is with any of the plan types. I know you've
You'd have to
reviewed all
concrete
of our.
pretty much most of your yard to get through that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
no,
no, I'm
and that would
good
be
then.
included under the
I'm good.
thing, but yes, you'd be
Okay.
covered in that. It's, the
Sounds good.
impervious surface is extensive in a lot of them, and not a lot of people have the money for that kind of concrete, so.
Sounds good. Sounds good, thanks. I knew it was a high number, I just
Yeah.
didn't know if our largest two-story, like, the team didn't specifically look at that, so just wanted to make sure.
We
So
should be
being
good.
so moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
I like those 70-foot lots in the R4
Yeah. We do too.
designation, so.
Thank you, guys.
bet.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you.
So, no additional items?
Nope, the only thing, well, I'll just tell you early, so if you got any plans for trips or fishing or whatever you wanna do, June 11th, I believe. Let me just double check, yeah, June 11th is election day, so we will not be having a meeting. We're gonna cancel that one, and then we'll resume our regular meetings on the 25th of June. Yeah, the 25th of June, so initial reminder to put it out there, that June 11th, the meeting will be canceled, so you can show up here if you want, but I will not be here,
Unless there's brown.
unless there's brownies or cookies. Yeah, and Commissioner Chalmers made cookies, so feel free to grab one, they are delightful.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. We don't pass that, do we?
No.